The impact knocked him off the wall, sending Uli plunging almost 1,000 feet. His body ricocheted against the rocks as he fell, his ice axes doing little to slow his terrifying descent. Annapurna historically has been the deadliest mountain, but with each disaster comes opportunity to improve. Here are 6 deadly disasters that later made Annapurna safer to ascend. On January 17, 2020, a group of trekkers set off on the popular Annapurna Base Camp Trail, one of the most scenic and frequented treks in the Himalayas. Known for its breathtaking views and moderate difficulty, this trail attracts adventurers of all levels. That day, however, the conditions were far from ideal. Heavy snowfall had built up over the previous days due to a westerly low-pressure system, turning the trek into a dangerous ordeal. The group included 4 South Korean teachers working as volunteers in Nepal and their 3 Nepali guides. Despite warnings of worsening weather, they pushed ahead, hoping to reach the base camp before conditions got worse. But the weather had other plans. As they climbed higher, an avalanche suddenly tore through the trails, sweeping across the very path they were on. Rescue helicopters were dispatched within hours of the avalanche being reported. In total, over 65 trekkers were successfully airlifted to safety, although the 7 missing trekkers, 4 South Koreans and 3 Nepalese, were never found. The fast rescue efforts likely saved many other lives that day. Helicopter rescues, which were once rare and difficult in the Annapurna region, had become far more common and efficient. The coordination between local authorities, trekking companies, and international rescue teams showcased just how much things had improved. The mountain, while still formidable, had become safer, thanks to better technology and preparedness, though more clearly can be done. This quick response was a direct result of lessons learned from past tragedies, including the devastating 2014 snowstorm. October 14, 2014 started out as a regular day on the Annapurna circuit, a trek that loops around the stunning Annapurna Massif. It was the middle of the autumn trekking season, typically the best time to hike. But this day would turn deadly as Cyclone Hudhud made its way inland from the Bay of Bengal. What began as clear skies quickly turned into a nightmare as the cyclone merged with the cold Himalayan air, unleashing a powerful snowstorm across the Annapurna region. The snow fell fast and heavy, over 1.8 feet in 12 hours. Trekkers, unaware of the severity of the incoming storm, found themselves trapped in deep snow with little protection. The storm caused power outages and knocked out communication systems, leaving hundreds of trekkers stranded along the circuit. Some were buried by avalanches. Others succumbed to hypothermia as temperatures plunged. When the storm cleared, the true extent of the disaster was revealed. 43 people had lost their lives. Many more were injured, and rescue operations struggled to reach those who were still stranded. The 2014 snowstorm became one of the deadliest incidents in the history of Annapurna trekking, and it highlighted the severe lack of preparedness for such disasters. In response, the Nepalese government and trekking agencies made sweeping changes. New weather stations were installed along the trail to provide real-time updates, helping trekkers avoid dangerous conditions. Trekking permits became more regulated, and the use of GPS tracking devices became mandatory, allowing rescuers to know the exact location of trekkers in case of emergencies. The government also constructed more emergency shelters at strategic points along the trail, giving trekkers safe places to wait out storms. Even if you're stranded alone on its icy slopes, help is never too far away. Just ask Wee Kin Chin. April 23, 2019 began as a day of triumph for Malaysian climber Wee Kin Chin, alongside his Sherpa guide Nima Chiring, reaching the summit of Annapurna at 3:50 p.m. The climb had been grueling, but the satisfaction of reaching the top made it all worth it. However, things quickly spiraled out of control during their descent. Chin was exhausted, far more than he anticipated. His pace slowed dramatically, and soon he ran out of oxygen. Nima did everything he could to help, but they were at a dangerous altitude of over 25,000 feet. Time was running out, and Nima made the difficult decision to leave Chin behind in search of help. For over 40 hours, Wee Kin Chin was stranded alone at an altitude few people can survive. Temperatures dropped well below freezing, and fierce winds battered his already weakened body. Chin's oxygen-deprived brain and extreme cold made it nearly impossible for him to hold on. Meanwhile, Nima's call for help set off a massive rescue effort. 7 Summit Treks, a Nepalese expedition company, dispatched a rescue team, including world-renowned climber Nirmal Purja. They also arranged a long-line helicopter rescue, an advanced technique where rescuers are lowered from a helicopter by a rope. This type of operation is risky and requires precision, but with Chin's life hanging in the balance, they moved quickly. After searching for hours, the team located Chin. Miraculously, he was still alive, though barely. He had suffered severe frostbite and was in critical condition, but he had survived against all odds. The rescuers brought him down to Camp 4 and then flew him to Kathmandu, where he received immediate medical treatment. While Chin ultimately lost his hands and feet to frostbite, he lived to tell the tale, an outcome that would have been nearly impossible just a decade earlier. Helicopters, long-line rescues, and highly skilled Sherpa teams had made it possible to save lives in the most extreme conditions. Why? Because of what happened in 2010. On April 29, 2010, Spanish climber Tolo Calafat was coming down from the summit of Annapurna when his climb took a tragic turn. He had reached the top, but during his descent, he began to experience symptoms of cerebral edema, a dangerous condition where fluid builds up in the brain due to high altitude. This left Calafat confused, weak, and disoriented. He was at around 24,900 feet, a point on the mountain where the air is thin and even the slightest delay can be fatal. Calafat's teammates tried their best to help him descend, but the weather was worsening and no rescue helicopters were available. The harsh conditions and extreme altitude made it impossible for them to carry him down themselves. They were left with a terrible choice: leave Calafat behind to seek help, or risk their own lives trying to stay with him. Desperately hoping that help would come, the team descended, leaving him behind on the exposed mountainside. For 2 long nights, Calafat remained alone, exposed to the brutal conditions of the high Himalayas. Rescue teams were sent up the mountain, but the combination of bad weather and the difficulties of flying helicopters at such a high altitude meant that they reached him too late. Tolo Calafat had succumbed to his illness and the freezing conditions, dying alone just below the summit of Annapurna. Many questioned whether more could have been done to save Calafat's life, and it became clear that rescue protocols on Annapurna needed improvement. In the years following Calafat's death, the Nepalese government took significant steps to upgrade their rescue infrastructure. New helicopters capable of flying at higher altitudes were brought in, and more advanced communication systems were installed on the mountain. These improvements meant that future climbers in distress could call for help earlier, increasing their chances of survival. Even before these improvements, a group of American women had summited Annapurna, though they didn't all return from the attempt. In October 1978, Arlene Bloom led a team of 12 American women on a groundbreaking expedition to Annapurna. This wasn't just any climb. It was the first all-women's team to attempt one of the world's tallest peaks. Annapurna had been climbed before, but never by an all-female team. These women were determined to make history. After weeks of climbing, on October 15th, 4 women from the team reached the summit. They had done what many thought was impossible: shown the world that women could climb the deadliest mountains. But the expedition wasn't without tragedy. The day after their successful summit, 2 climbers from the team, Vera Komarkova and Irene Miller, tried to make a second summit attempt. As they climbed higher, the weather turned bad. The two women fell into a crevasse, never to return. Despite this loss, the expedition was still a triumph for women in mountaineering. It showed that women could succeed on the same mountains as men and paved the way for future female climbers. Today, Annapurna sees more women climbers than ever before, thanks in part to the trailblazing efforts of Bloom and her team. And new, even more insane records become possible as climbs become more established. And in case you've been enjoying these videos, please consider subscribing. It helps us a lot. Now, back to Uli's insane speedrun. In 2007, Uli Steck, the renowned Swiss climber known for his lightning-fast ascents, attempted to tackle Annapurna's south face solo, a feat few dared to try. This face of the mountain was infamous for its brutal conditions and steep, unpredictable terrain. Annapurna's south face had long been a graveyard for climbers. Pierre Bégon and Jean-Christophe Lafayette attempted the same route in 1992. A failed anchor at 23,300 feet sent Bégon plunging to his death, leaving Lafayette to descend alone using tent pegs as anchors. Steck's 2007 attempt was marked by a similar disaster. After days of climbing, Steck reached the high-altitude area where Bégon had died. He was making good progress, scaling the dangerous ice and rock with expert precision, when suddenly, a barrage of rockfall rained down from above. The impact knocked Steck off the wall, sending him plunging almost 1,000 feet. His body ricocheted against the rocks as he fell, his ice axes doing little to slow his terrifying descent. After falling nearly 300 meters, Steck miraculously landed on a small ledge. His ribs were broken and he was bruised and battered, but he was still alive. The near-death experience left him shaken, and with great difficulty, Steck made a painstaking descent back to base camp. It seemed Annapurna had beaten him, but he had lived. Fast forward to 2013, Steck returned to Annapurna's south face once more. This time, he was ready. On October 8th, he began a daring 28-hour solo push up the same route that had nearly killed him years earlier. Armed with lessons learned and a deep drive to conquer the mountain, Steck reached the summit on October 9th. It was the first recorded solo ascent of the south face. Steck didn't use ropes or traditional safety equipment for much of his climb. Instead, he relied on his skill and knowledge of the mountain. He ascended quickly, reaching the summit and then returning to base camp in record time. His climb was a feat of strength, but it also showed how much Annapurna had changed. Years earlier, such an attempt would have been seen as reckless, but with improved gear and better planning, Steck was able to succeed where others had failed. Steck's climb showed the world that Annapurna was not as inaccessible as it once was. Today, climbers use lighter, stronger gear and rely on better weather forecasting to plan their ascents. Climbing Annapurna is still a huge challenge, but it's no longer the impossible task it once seemed. As we've seen, Annapurna has become a safer mountain over the years, thanks to better technology, faster rescue teams, and smarter planning. This does not mean it has yet been tamed. Far from it, and the spirit of adventure is still alive and well on its slopes. If you enjoyed hearing these stories, please subscribe. It really helps us out. See ya!